Hello, everyone. Welcome to Paradigm Shifters. I'm Veronica Entwistle. We ran this show with interviews with amazing people for, I think it was about 20 years or something, but I haven't done it for a while. And I want to get back up there and talk to you and introduce you to some amazing people that are hanging in there and making a big difference in today's chaos. One of my favorite guests is Linda Schurman. Welcome, Linda.
So nice to be on your show, Veronica.
I'm so pleased you're here. Now, Linda is an astrologer, not just an astrologer, but she has a real wit and absolute understanding of the whole political dynamics. That's not all. She's going to talk to you about who you are and what you could become and what your chart shows about you and so on. So we just have no end of ways to go with Linda. And I'm just so glad to see you in person with your whole beautiful face here and everything. Welcome.
It's great to be here with your listening audience, viewing audience.
Many of my clients love to check out your latest material, especially your newsletter, which is, Linda calls herself, her newsletter, she calls it Soothesayer. And I like that because instead of just Soothesayer, she soothes me as I read this very dynamic stuff. So getting ready for this show, I was really fascinated by the acute deference you've given to parts of your newsletter. It's a really great run through, and some of it's terrifying. Right? Am I right or am I left?
Yes, the website is www.soothesayer, SOOTHESAYER.com. And I put a newsletter up on that site every other month, free to the public, as to my projections for the future. That astrology will not forecast an event. It forecasts types of events. It describes a climate that we're all in, of themes and issues that are relevant to our lives here on Earth. I think it's so important for people to understand what astrology does and what it doesn't do, because each one of us has the ability to make a choice with every challenge and every opportunity that comes up. So astrology gives you insight as to the themes and issues that you probably have to choose.
I really like the aspect of choice. I mean, I really we need to pay attention to that. Not like, oh gosh, I'm a Gemini, so I'm screwed, right?
Yes, well, my last book with co-authored with Richard Spitzer, called Our Choice, Extinction or Evolution. It was published in 2017 and is sold on Amazon. And that described the situation of the coming economies, politics, the global environment, climate, all of these things that we have to make decisions about if humanity is going to continue to exist and thrive. And our point of view is that if we don't choose evolution, which is advancement in consciousness, wisdom, understanding, technology, and progress, if we go back into the lower levels of the human psyche, which is hate and tribalism and polarization, we won't survive the times that lie ahead of us, which are very, very serious. So
but hey, Linda, isn't that what's going on now?
That is exactly. We're having such a challenge at this point of the concept and philosophy of life that we need to grasp. And what's going on in Washington now is obviously a triumph of hate.
Mm-hmm.
And
abuse. It's abusive. Come on.
Abuse, hate. Let's shut down everything in the government that has done anything for our country and its people. And by the time the people find out that all of this is shut down and they have lost everything that's kept them alive and thriving, they're going to have to make changes. And my message is that the astrological pictures, which I have forecasted, that this time period starting in 2008 to 2025 would be the Second American Revolution and the Dark Night of the Soul in America. My first book, What Next, which was published in 2007, presented that all the climate changes, the political upheavals. Now we're at a point, as far as I'm an astrologer is concerned, we are at a point where this choice is going to have to be made within 2025, 2026 as to what direction we're going in. And believe it or not, as dark as it is in the current situation, I'm an optimist because these planets are changing into new, youthful, exciting, innovative signs. And we think we've seen innovation over the past 20 or 30 years. We haven't seen anything yet.
Hang on one sec. I want to ask you one thing, which is kind of pivotal. I was writing notes to you today in my preparation for this, and I thought, do all of us have does humanity en masse have an energy for evolution, as you mentioned, evolution? I'm big into that whole concept.
Yes.
But is it also in cycles like astrology is? And is it in cycles for the whole human race? You see what I mean? I'm going.
It's all of the above.
Because
Veronica.
one of the things we keep hearing about, and you know lots about this, is history repeats itself. I'm going, holy crap, we can't just keep doing it. I want to feel, how's that? That there's some push in humanity to move beyond this dog eat dog stuff. So now I open my mind and heart to you again.
Well, that's a wonderful question. It's a question I think that most people would like to ask. And I don't have an ultimate answer. I believe that new consciousness is becoming available to humanity as a whole. But humanity as a whole has never just walked from one realm to the other. There are millions of people who are not ready for this. There are individuals who are resisting this evolutionary leap into higher consciousness. There are people who, are very, very wounded and upset over things that have been going on in their lives for years, and they don't understand what was behind it, which for instance, the economy of the USA, and for the past 40 to 50 years, it's been taken over by what Joe Biden called the oligarchs, which are the billionaire class, which now own over 80% of this nation's wealth. Historically, as astrologers, we have to study history. And historically, when this has happened, you've always had a revolution, whether it's the peasants revolting against the monarchies in France or the communist revolution.
Makes great movies.
Yes, the revolution in Russia, which overthrew the monarchy and put something worse in power, which were the communists and the Stalinists. Whether the French Revolution, they all killed each other at that time and eventually put Napoleon into power. And then finally, it became into a democracy. It took them a long time. The Chinese Communist Revolution, which overthrew the emperor class and wound up in a worse place than they were. Revolutions don't have a good track record unless they are consciousness revolutions. What has happened in this country is by overthrowing what people call the establishment, which they think it was the government that created this. It was a combination of both political parties being stuck with having to raise money from what I call the plutocrats or the billionaire class in order for them to get elected. So
it's happened over and over that way?
It happened over and over, so that a lot of the people who thought the Democrats were on their side as the normal, middle class, working class, they lost that because they too became subservient to the billionaire class paying for their campaigns. In 2010, a terrible decision was made by the Supreme Court. And they ruled in the Citizens United case that there was no limit as to how much money could be put
That
in.
was so horrendous. Oh,
Exactly true. And that was the beginning of the end, too. It was happening anyway, but this legalized the ability for elections to be bought. So what has happened is laws have been made that are favorable to this class. And now that Trump is in, he wants all supports to be taken away from the public at large, whether it's Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, aid, like the Department of Education sends aid to kids who are autistic or special ed or need, he wants
trans kids too,
yes,
you know?
everything. And we won't even get into that, the whole thing that the right wing has used about people's sexual orientation has nothing to do with anything as far as the future of this country, which all has to do with bottom line economics. Where is the money going? Is it going to help the masses? Is it going to make this nation a combination of entrepreneurial capitalism and social programs for the masses, a combination between those two things so that everybody has a shot if they want to create a business or they want to get a job or they want
That's
to
called
gain health.
democracy, isn't it? Yes.
Yes, it's all about giving the public a shot. Does Elon Musk need a shot by reducing his taxes? Does Jeff Bezos need a shot so he can succeed? He has all the health care, all the things in the world he would need. These guys are into getting tax reductions. They are also, our whole economic system is being bought up by monopolies. The food system, everything. Oh, the grocery chains are all being brought up. Sinclair Media owns most of the media now across the nation, the local news channels, the radio shows. We're being bought up by singular billionaire class monopolies so that we can't even get decent news that's telling the truth. And now there's a movement to shut down a lot of the TV shows that are truth tellers because the billionaire class, what's only in its interest, and the people that own these companies, this billionaire class, are the most selfish group of people, the most ingrown people. They have no interest in helping the public at large. They have no interest in helping healthcare across this country, helping your children grow up, public education, which has been almost
Public
destroyed.
education is going to zilch.
It went for the past 30, 40 years. It has been more or less unfunded, particularly in the middle class to lower income class areas who depend on property, local property tax. So what has happened is civics, political science, and most history has been taken out of the class.
Critical thinking of any kind.
Critical thinking of any kind. So recently, there's been a mass survey. The average IQ now in the United States is 94.
I heard that, and I used to teach school. I'm going, what?
Me too. I used to teach school as well. And the civics, political science that we had to learn when I was in high school and everything has been removed. So people don't know how the democracy works. They don't know what's in the Constitution. And so
they spout it. It's about the Constitution. Do you know the Constitution? Well, no. I want to interrupt you for a minute. I want to ask you a question about, do you think that this might not be your bailiwick, but I'm testing you. Do you think that Trump is astrologically designated to do exactly what he's doing? And has it come from other lives? Has he come through Les Miserables or whatever, you know? I'm curious as to how much of it keeps coming. People say history repeats itself. I go, okay,
it rhymes. History rhymes, as I'm fond of saying. This Pluto return we're experiencing in the chart of the USA, and Pluto in Aquarius, the last time Pluto was in Aquarius was the American Revolution, the French Revolution, and the Industrial Revolution. So history is rhyming. What is fascinating to me is the astrological chart of Mad King George of England, who was the reigning monarch at the time of the American Revolution, is so startlingly similar to the chart of Donald Trump, a
Wow, I
Gemini
read
with
that in your
Leo rising
newsletter.
and Mars on that. It's
Fascinating.
astounding. I
Mhm.
don't know that reincarnation, it may or may not be behind this, but charts do return. Astrological configurations repeat themselves. And right now, we are struggling against Trump, who wants to be the king, who wants to be the monarch, who wants to abolish democracy altogether and be the guy in charge. We are returning now to why we created the American Revolution in the first place, was the ideal of democracy. We had great men like Washington, Jefferson, Adams, people of this nature. And now we need a return to the emergence of new great men and women that need to emerge, especially younger people, which I think is going to start to happen. I feel that Trump's astrological chart has a tremendous amount of tension in it between February, March, and April. Tremendous. And then again, it gets hit hard in early June. So that Trump's astrological chart is definitely stressful and being challenged. Now, who's going to challenge him or what is going to challenge him? We don't really know. We just know that there's a lot of tension and stress and upheaval.
What's his relationship to Elon's chart?
I think that they're battling brothers. As I said on my website newsletter, Elon Musk is a Cancer with Gemini rising and a Gemini Venus, and Trump is a Gemini with Saturn in Cancer. Their charts are linked. And I think that, like Castor and Pollux, the ancient twins that Gemini represents, they're going to butt heads.
So they're
They're going to
competitive.
challenge each other. They're not, you can't have two childish adolescent egos like this in the same room with one another. They're going to be butting heads with each other. Trump is not going just to give in. Elon, I think, was $270 million he put into Trump's campaign. And he thinks now he's king of the world, and Trump thinks he's king of the world. So the two of them.
And they wander in and out of the government as if they were actually there.
Yes.
Trump had not won the election, and Elon has never even run.
That's right. And Trump reminded him that he can't get elected president even if he ran, because he was born in a foreign country. Right. He was not born on U.S. soil, which happens
but
to
it doesn't matter that Trump is a felon and all that. Huh?
Yes. Well, Trump has been convicted of multiple things. He has spent his life with a coterie of lawyers that his father taught him how to use, because he's a con man from beginning to end. His projects, many of them went bankrupt. He never paid his workers. They go bankrupt, and the bank that financed him took the losses, whereas he created a separate entity, LLC, under his name. So he took money out of the project as it was being built. And then when it went bankrupt, he had his money, but he didn't have to pay anybody back for that.
And why is it that he keeps getting into these positions where he's just evil Knievel, but he doesn't have to pay it back? He doesn't.
He is a media meister. We have created a mass media. I mean, he was the king of WrestleMania. Forget The Apprentice. That was a complete bull operation anyway. It was filled with lies and stupid. Forget The Apprentice. It was WrestleMania that more characterizes. People get on there, they think they're watching a wrestling thing or a football game, and Trump screams the loudest and beats up the hardest. And that level, the lowest level of human consciousness, is what he appeals to. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that are so angry because they have been stiffed. They have been stiffed by this society, by this economy. They just don't know who did it to them. And they're constantly blaming the government rather than the class of billionaires, because secretly they'd like to become Trump. They'd like to become one of those billionaires. Most people will never, that will never happen. So they foster.
I blame Citizens United for a lot of it too.
Yes, exactly. Citizens United enable them to that class of people to do just about anything that they want. And now, since the Supreme Court decided last year that Trump can't be prosecuted for anything while he is in office. Now, they did make a distinction. He could be prosecuted for personal crimes, but not for anything that would pertain to his running the state. So Trump is now doing he's dropping FEMA, which all these rescue things. He said, I'm going to get rid of FEMA. He's going to get rid of the NIH, the National Health Organization, that ensures our health. He's going to get rid of all of these entities that ensure that we have something that works for us in this country. So he says the states should take care of their own disasters, which is physically impossible for them, by the way, without federal help. So he recently went to California and told the Californians with their burnt down homes, we're not going to fix this. You're just going to, it's your responsibility.
He didn't even go to the places where the burning was terrible.
Right. And then he goes to North Carolina, to Asheville, talking to those people who've been devastated by climate-induced hurricane, and says, we're not going to help you out. You know, fortunately, Biden sent money to both of these areas before he left office, so they have something to work with. But Trump is removing any assistance or help. That people are going to find out that he is killing the country. He is annihilating.
I'm wondering if that's his purpose.
He is so angry that he wasn't elected that second time. He is such
narcissist.
He's a sociopath. I'm going to say it outright. This is a sociopath. And we have elected, this country put him into office because they didn't understand how democracy works, what happened to them over the past 40 or 50 years, who did it. And that's why I wrote 3 books and have my online newsletter, because I'm trying to explain. As an astrologer, I see the planetary placements. As a researcher, I look at global climate scientists, oceanographers, economists, great economists who know a lot more about this than I do. And I use the information at large from good people that I can get to support the astrology forecasts, which I make.
I think your books are amazing. I don't remember them all the time, but I love your newsletter because it's in the moment kind of thing. It's easy.
Well, the newsletter is free to everybody. There's no charge for it.
It's also really, really brilliant.
I thank you so much. And
because it makes sense of a lot of things that don't make any sense, you know?
Well, I have to say, in spite of everything that I've just said, I am optimistic. There are things that are going to come forth in the next couple of years, 2 or 3, that are going to be startling. That number one is nuclear fusion is going to become a reality. And for years, I have been publishing, quoting articles from Scientific America.
And remember, we were on the radio together years ago, and you were
exactly
really explaining
nuclear. It's a hydrogen fusion reaction that was discovered making the hydrogen bomb. It has been put into chambers using different technologies, and it's making enormous progress. It will produce an infinite amount of energy with no fossil fuel involved. It will end the age of fossil fuel. It is the holy grail. Now, these chambers there have been problems. that they have had to solve. One of the big problems is the melting down of the chamber that the fusion reaction takes place in. That has been solved by painting the sides with lithium, and then they've got another way of directing the particles against the side of the chamber. They're solving these problems right now.
Can I add one more thing? Is what about free energy?
Well,
That's a big deal right now.
Okay. Two things come up. Once we have fusion online, and they know how to hook up to the present infrastructure that we have. We don't have to rebuild the whole infrastructure
Oh, that's such a
to the fusion chamber. Once we have that, we will no longer have to buy oil, gas, coal, or anything like that. We won't be using minerals at all. They will have to charge for this because you have to pay. It's a lot of money, and the billionaires are starting to invest in this. Bill Gates is starting to invest in this. The government has put some money into this under Joe Biden. There's investment going into this. Once it's up and running, we are still going to have to pay a utility bill, but we will no longer be subject to wars in the Middle East or Eastern Europe or any place in terms of causing prices to escalate as they have in the past because oil pipes are shut down. We won't have that to worry about. So they will charge for it. We're not going to get this for free. You have to pay for the maintenance of these chambers, the personnel that works there, and all this. There will be, but it will be nothing like these astronomical heights. And then the electric cars will kick in, and everything. These will right now. You're burning a lot of coal to make solar panels, a lot of coal to make electric cars. That will no longer be necessary. You won't be burning those things to manufacture things anymore.
I want to do an edit in here about astrological influences that are, I want to understand what are the astrological influences these days that are bringing us to a new open-mindedness about that.
Okay, Pluto in Aquarius is the biggie, and he will be there until 2044. So he's going to be there for a long time.
I always think of Pluto as ready to break it all apart.
Pluto is death and rebirth.
Yeah, okay.
He's a massive, he rules mass economies, mass energies, mass consciousness, from the lowest form of war and destruction to the highest form of rebirth and remaking of everything. Aquarius is a sign of dramatic technological breakthroughs. The first thing we noticed was AI, the emergence of AI. Which really is an extension of the internet, which emerged in the 1990s when Neptune and Uranus were in Aquarius, bringing that stuff and cell phones and everything. What Pluto in Aquarius is a big deal. He is going to be behind the symbol, which says endless amounts of energy, space travel, all kinds of things. Then we have Uranus going into Gemini, a sign of communication, education, and that the last time that was there, the last times Uranus was in Gemini was the American Civil War. I'm sorry, the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, and World War II. So, but great technological breakthroughs were made out of those wars. But at the same time, do we need a terrible war, a World War III? That's one of the big dangers with that transit, is we will make these phenomenal breakthroughs in technology. At the same time, we are really seriously in danger of going to war with China, because it's the Chinese chart that's being activated by the Pluto in Aquarius and the Uranus in Gemini.
Let me ask you this: is war the physical war is not the only interpretation of?
I don't think it will be a war that has to do with bombs and that, very little of that. I think it's going to be a war of shutting down infrastructures.
Okay.
In other words, they may attack our water systems, our electrical systems, our internet, our satellites. China right now wants to build a new satellite that would produce solar energy, have a gigantic solar panel which would beam that to Earth. I think that's an excuse to have a satellite which could direct energy to anywhere it wanted to go, that could take out entire infrastructures. So I think Ronald Reagan's notion of a space war and this sort of thing may be coming true if we're not cautious, if we don't
Horrible
have the
idea.
right people to work these things out. And you don't know where Trump stands on this. One minute he's talking to the Chinese Xi Jinping and their buddies and pals, and the next minute tariffs on China. I'm going to destroy China. We're going to do that. He swings back and forth all the time in connection with what he's going to do with China. And by the way, Xi Jinping is another Gemini. Gemini sun.
We Geminis have to find our own little hiding hole.
Yes, Geminis can do almost anything and be almost anything. This is the thing. Who do you choose to be when you're a Gemini? Which guy is here in the room? Which one of you, Veronica, is here today?
I want to throw another comment in, which probably is relevant to what you're asking, which is if your Uranus and what was it, that thing that you talked about?
Pluto, Uranus and Pluto, they're trining each other.
But wouldn't that maybe be used in different way, maybe it would drive people's understanding of moving out of their body without death because it's a transformative thing. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm kind of trying to come up with something different besides the good old war, you know?
Well, yes, I do feel Gemini is, and that you're a good example of a wonderful communicator, because their strength is in grasping wonderful, great, a whole variety of ideas and communicating those ideas to the public at large. And this is what you do so well. I think if we're talking about that kind of consciousness change, that's part of this.
That's what I'm talking about.
But Neptune it's been in Pisces, which is floods and tsunamis and volcanoes, and also the breakdown of the old religious ideas and ideals. Neptune is going to go into Aries briefly this summer. We have Pluto in Aquarius, Uranus in Gemini, and Neptune and Saturn going into Aries by July of this year, even though they'll retrograde briefly back into the old signs until the spring of next year. So they're kind of going back and forth from the old signs to the new. Now, what do I think? I think the capacity to receive information from a much, much greater source has to do with Neptune and one's spiritual core. And with Neptune going into Aries, there's going to be a new receptivity on the part of a whole new, younger generation.
Oh, how
giving
exciting.
Birth to new, evolved young people.
That could be a quantum leap in society.
It could be. It could be. See, not everybody who's alive on this planet is going to benefit or not benefit in the same way. It's not like all of a sudden all the people are going to be there with this new consciousness. You're going to have people popping up over here and popping up over there, but there will be opportunities arriving on the scene for new, younger, fresh ideas. The new technologies are just going to be amazing. One of the things is biogenetic engineering and what they call the Crispr technology, which has already started. They will be able to engineer your genes so that most diseases, you will no longer capitulate to most diseases because they'll be able to engineer your genes. There's going to be breakthroughs in medical science that are literally mind-boggling, in addition to nuclear fusion, in addition to phenomenal. We have to learn with Saturn going into Aries, we have to regulate the mass communications, which we have now. We're on a podcast. There's so many podcasts. There's so many ways. We've got to have some form of standards set for people. Are you correct in what you're quoting? Or are you making up inflammatory stuff just to get people to go out and buy a gun and go and shoot somebody?
Well, they're
There's
trying to
got-
keep us separated too, right?
Yes, there's got to be standards. Because what inspires people has got to be on a higher level, not a lower level of consciousness. You can be inspired by great anger and vicious revenge stuff and go out and do a school shooting or whatever. And our young people are obviously being dumbed down by their eyeballs on cell phones, that there's no discrimination.
And the mental health problem from terrible food from
Exactly.
all of
There's
this,
all
yeah.
kinds of mental health problems that we're starting to recognize. And this started with the advent of the internet in the 1990s. And there was no cybersecurity. I have been like a born again fusion lady and a born again cybersecurity lady since the beginning of my books and newsletters, that we have to have cybersecurity, and we really don't know how to do that. There are young people that are training in it and trying, but the government gets hacked. The Chinese are hacking into everything. And the other thing, as I said, that I'm really concerned about is high tech advancement into being for enemies to be able to take out each other's infrastructure, so that you don't have to do a lot of bombings and things. You can shut down electricity, you can shut down the internet, you can shut down water systems and across. And believe me, our CIA, FBI, the people that Trump want to shut down have been examining these things for years. One of the programs I love to watch most is 60 Minutes on CBS, because they have really interviewed these people in recent years that have exposed how vulnerable we are to these things. So that we also, in the South China Sea and in the Pacific, the Chinese have developed a military capacity that's ahead of us. We still have the greatest military in the world, but in that region, they have surpassed us. And these guys the generals, are retiring and testifying on places like 60 Minutes that the Chinese have outdone us in these areas. So we have to know this. We have to keep that kind of war from happening. And that requires a dialogue, a communication. We have to have mutual self-interest deals. If Trump were a decent human, he's a good deal maker, he could make a deal like that, but he's not. And you don't know what he's going to do, because he from one minute to the next doesn't know what he's going to do.
Well, here's something else. As you spoke of consciousness a while back, and are enough people feeling and becoming more conscious to move you know what I mean, to move masses of people?
I have high hopes for that.
Okay.
I have hopes that my grandchildren, they come to visit us here and feel that we're cooler than their own generation. My husband and I, who are in meditation, higher consciousness, believe in life after so-called death, believe that human consciousness is we're evolving as a species, and there are greater realms to be explored. And they love this.
Yeah, really.
They love coming.
And they're closer to all that than they are as they get older.
We grandparents that, like you and like me, who were into the consciousness movements from the 1970s on and have never, ever left our focus on this.
You can't leave it once you're...
The older generation, owe it to our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren, to expose them to these ideas, because they are ready for this. They're going to, oh, right now they're very discouraged. My grandchildren, tell you, when we at Christmas time, when they saw the results of this election, everyone was so, I said, don't be depressed about this. Times are changing. A new consciousness is coming. And I spoke with them about it, and they immediately felt better. And I said, you guys are the ones that are going to help bring this about.
For you,
You will get the ideas, you will get the inspiration. It is coming for you. And I do believe that the ideas, the inspiration are coming onto planet Earth, that a sense of elevation, of wisdom, understanding, along with science and technology, is going to be available to us. I absolutely, but there will be different groups of people that respond to this in different ways, Veronica, as you well know. Not everybody.
I wanted to be in charge. No, I'm teasing. I do not want to be in charge. But yeah, I was just looking for, and you're helping with that there is some cellular direction or some cellular direction for people to evolve out of the dog eat dog thing, isn't there?
Yeah, that's what I would ask you as a medium, a person who channels these energies, what you feel about this. Do you feel the expansion of these energies at this time?
But I think it's okay. I feel that. I feel the expansion of it. I feel like Tinkerbell. It hits all of us. And some people can't receive that, can't feel it. So those people often hunker down harder.
Yes.
But when I see Trump and this whole election thing, I feel that kind of grip. We got to hang on and we got to beat up the next guy. That to me shuts out a lot of the evanescence. It's like an evanescence of evolution. But I also see the evolutions coming through anyway. And I think the young kids are like that. You know,
I'm so glad to hear you say these things, because we tend to agree, you and I, because I do believe it's there for the taking. It's, I should say, the opening. Once you open
for the being, isn't it? It's
yes.
Be it. Yeah.
You and I are saying the same thing. I said to my grandchildren, do not give up in despair over this. Open up. The answers are coming. The inspiration is coming. The new ideas are coming. Open up to that. Recognize the universe is making it possible for this evolutionary leap to take place. But if, when you, like you describe, when you clench and say, oh my God, I have to defend myself against this, that's not the right approach. It's going to be open to the higher energies. It's like turning the light on in the room. The cockroaches will be seen and they'll all scamper away.
But actually, we started talking about this, but I don't know if you're astrologically, are you able to comment on the evolution of our species? I mean, are people en masse, like the children that are coming through en masse, are they coming through with the wit and the wisdom and the consciousness because of the nature of reincarnation or whatever? I think you said you weren't. Anyway, if you like talking,
I do think there are many who will, and there's some who won't, because we are not all coming into this at the same time. We never have.
Right.
History has shown that you have great movements in which people get on board, and then you have all these other people on here that want to knock it down. So it isn't necessarily everybody
plagued by fashion. The fashion is not.
Yeah, exactly. We're in a fascist mode right now, and it has been worldwide. I mean, other countries have been overthrowing their democratic leaders and putting more fascist style people, and this has been a global phenomenon that we have been through, but we're about to end that and go into another cycle. So I am hoping that there will be people who not only see these lights and see the path of the future, but are willing to run for office and get themselves out there and get the people who have a passion to share this, to work with others. Aquarius is a sign of teams and groups. Aquarius loves the real notion of democracy, which is non-hierarchical. In other words, that we're all respected equally. We all have a vote. We all have a voice. And so that companies are best run by teams as opposed to a singular individual that acts like a dictator, like a CEO. It's best run by teams. And on that team are people with different levels of expertise. So you have some person over here is very good at the humanistic part, at the technological, other tech part, the other at the creative part. If you have teams working together, you're going to produce wonderful results because they're all like friends. And they go home together, they have a drink with one another and put their feet up and enjoy, and they become friends, they become team workers, as opposed to ruthless competition for one person inhabiting the place at the top.
Or agreed. Yeah, I was thinking that during the last two elections, actually, we should have at least 3 people running for president together.
That's a thought.
Yeah, nobody's listening to me, but that's not unusual. But
Well,
also, before we're done, I'm afraid we're going to run out of speed, so you might have to come on again. But but I want to talk a little bit about health. Let's go back to consciousness because I'm fascinated by that. But health and consciousness of people learning more about healing themselves. There's a lot of alternative healing things on, and applying the mind to even technology. Well, do you know anything about that? Is that something that's rising?
Well, the whole situation around health and medicine, I have to say, I'm not an authority on it. I read a lot of books, I read a lot of material. This is my feeling about that subject, which is not, I'm not an expert, I want to say, is that I think that what medicine, the breakthroughs in medicine and health, and they are starting to go into the air, how horrible the nutrition is, the fast food industries and everything that have been going on.
Poison.
Again,
Poison.
that is starting to happen. People are starting to wake up to this. I think that preventative medicine, good nutrition and exercise, these things are definitely important. But I also believe that the breakthroughs in modern medicine, I would not be alive. My husband would not be alive without these fantastic surgical and medical breakthroughs. I think those two areas, instead of being at odds with one another, need to work together and recognize that your lifestyle, how you eat, how you move, and also a daily meditation in which you free yourself from all the tensions and rocky vibrations and everything, so that you have a daily meditation into a path of higher consciousness. All of these things are going to direct you to be a healthier person, a longer lived person, a better person. But I don't think we should throw one out at the expense of the other. Again, that's an
You made a really good point when you said a better person. I immediately think of non-reactive, more able to center and figuring out from the moment what to design and do. And I think that's one of the greatest routes to consciousness.
Exactly. I think we have to pick, for instance, there's a field I'm sure you're familiar with called Reiki, energy healing. This is very effective with the people who do it, who are really good. It's like anything else, people who are really gifted and good at doing it and everything. It's great, but it's one part. It's not the whole part. If you, like, I needed a knee replacement, and I was glad to have a fully recognized orthopedic surgeon here in Ithaca. We call her the Queen of Knees. And I went through like, but now I've got one good knee I can depend on. I don't think a Reiki healer would have done that for me, but the Reiki healer could help me heal from that surgery, could help me feel better all the way around. So I think we need to use what's appropriate for our healing.
So the other thing is, do you see in astrological designations or whatever they're called, do you see kind of people becoming more and more able to heal themselves?
I think that's definitely a possibility. It starts with taking responsibility
That's
for
true.
yourself and saying, I'm going to look at what is a healthy diet for me? What is a daily exercise program that's healthy for me? What is a state of mind, which you and I would agree is the most important? What is a
Mhm.
state of mind that is healthy for me? We have to start taking responsibility instead of just being flotsam and jetsam and being by ads that come on, and
Victimized
you
because
know,
I'm like my mother
this
or like my,
we have to start by being adults and
yeah.
taking responsibility and say, I'm going
But
to
Linda, that's not fashionable in positions of power.
people in positions of power, they do not want you to take that responsibility.
But
They
I
want you to
think that
buy their stuff.
I really believe that it is kind of evolution, that we are going to know more and more about helping and healing each other and all of that.
I
Even as I
agree.
say,
I think that
dropping
that
off the
is
crap food and the
I think that is more possible now than it has been in centuries. We're at the end of the Piscean age. We have marched into the age of Aquarius. That's a 2100-year cycle. And I
oh,
think it
that's
is
good.
it's profound. It is more possible for us today to make this evolutionary leap than it ever has been before. And it's up to each and every one of us to work toward that end in our personal lives and by loving and embracing everybody else, including life on planet Earth, to help make that happen.
I love that. Also, I keep teasing people who are senior than we are even, and saying, what do you want to be when you grow up? Because I really believe as we end our life, there's still things we want to do and become, and that gives us a light of forward movement, even
I
though we
couldn't
may be
agree with you
older.
more.
And it's
Total
fun.
agreement with that.
So let's do a stand up together.
Yeah, yay.
Anyway, I have to say thank you, and thank you so much for coming on to this. Is my first rerun of Paradigm Shifters, and it'll be one of many, and I really like it if you'll come back again soon.
I'd love to come back, Veronica. I
And we'll be
love you
loaded with questions by
very
then.
much. I love the way you interview, and it's been such a pleasure.
Such a pleasure for me to actually see you, because we always did it by radio.
Yeah.
So it's delightful to see you. Much love and thanks to everyone who's paying attention here.
Love to all who watch this podcast, all of you.
And let's all grow. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.